Happy Russia Day! To celebrate the holiday, we are going to rank the top 5 best Tsars of Mother Russia. At number 5, we have Tsar Nikolai Alexandrovich Romanov, more commonly known as Nicholas II. Nicholas is by far the most famous Tsar, known for being manipulated by the infamous starets Rasputin, losing World War I, and then abdicating the throne when the Bolsheviks took over Russia. Nicholas II and his immediate family were all killed on July 17, 1918 by the secret police of the new socialist regime while they were imprisoned in the Ipatiev house. Although he had no real accomplishments, Tsar Nicholas II would always be remembered for taking photos with his identical cousins. At number 4, we have the only non-Romanov on the list, Ivan IV Vasilievich. Tsar Ivan Vasilievich, more commonly known in English as Ivan the Terrible, although a more proper translation would be Ivan the Formidable, was without a doubt crucial to Russia's rise to global prominence. Before Ivan the Formidable's reign, Russia was divided into different states known as duchies, which emerged out of the dwindling Golden Horde in Kievan Rus, the most powerful of these states being the Grand Duchy of Moscow. Ivan was just 3 years old when his dying father, Vasily III, the Grand Duke of Moscow, chose him to be his successor. When Ivan IV was officially crowned on January 16, 1547, he assumed the title Tsar of all the Russians, thus being the first official Russian Tsar. In addition to reorganizing Russia into an empire, Ivan the Formidable's achievements include conquering Kazan, Astrakhan, and Sibir, and establishing Russia's first publishing house. Ivan the Formidable was not perfect. He started the Livonian War, which devastated Russia and resulted in territorial losses for the empire, implemented the Oprichnina, the systematic execution of Russian aristocrats and confiscation of their property, and is believed to have killed his firstborn son Ivan Ivanovich. In spite of this, Ivan the Formidable is to thank for Imperial Russia's special place in history as the Third Rome. At number 3, we have Tsar Alexander I. Tsar Alexander I is famous for being the Emperor of Russia during the Napoleonic Wars, and therefore the Tsar in Tolstoy's War and Peace. In 1812, Russia was invaded by Napoleon's Grand Army, but with the help of Russia's cold winter, Tsar Alexander I was able to force the French to march back home. About 380,000 French soldiers died, and an additional 100,000 were captured by the Russians. Russia would go on to join the Sixth Coalition, which marched into France in 1814 and went on to defeat the French in Paris. Tsar Alexander I was known for his Enlightenment-inspired reforms to the empire and his overall liberal political views, but towards the end of his reign, his policies began to resemble those of a traditional monarch, and his views were much more reactionary than his younger self. Tsar Alexander I believed that the European monarchies should unite in a free confederation which would oppose secular dictatorships like those in Napoleon's and stand for Christian values and brotherly love. At number 2, we have Tsar Peter the Great. Peter the Great, as his name implies, did many great things, including but not limited to founding the city of St. Petersburg, creating the Russian Navy, and expanding education in the empire, specifically in the fields of science and mathematics. Towards the end of his reign, Peter the Great changed his title from Tsar of all the Russians to Emperor of all the Russians, which all the following rulers of Russia would use as their title up until the February Revolution. However, Tsar would remain the colloquial term for the Russian emperor. The Tsar's greatest military achievement would be defeating Sweden, which had one of the strongest armies and navies at the time in the Great Northern War, and consequently taking the territories of Ingria, Estonia, and Livonia. Peter the Great wasn't always great. He implemented a beard tax, forced members of his court to wear French clothing, and failed to take Azov from the Ottomans. But this doesn't take away from his special status as the Tsar who completed Russia's long, multi-generational journey from a weak, divided nation into a formidable and prestigious empire with political and cultural influence that spanned across the globe. And at number 1 we have Tsar Alexander II. Ruling Russia from the end of the Crimean War until his assassination in 1881, Alexander II is without a doubt Russia's greatest Tsar. His crowning achievement was the abolition of serfdom in the Russian Empire. The Emancipation Reform of 1861 granted full Russian citizenship to all privately owned serfs. Masters had to let their serfs buy 1/2 of the land which they used to grow their own food and were demanded to give them at least 1/4 for free. The former serfs were now allowed to, among other things, own property, start their own businesses, and get married without needing the approval of a landlord. Tsar Alexander II proved to the world that Russia was not only strong and formidable, but also free. Tsar Alexander II also reformed the judiciary system, liberated Bulgaria from the Ottomans, won the Caucasian War, which had been going on for nearly half a century, conquered Turkestan, and sold Alaska to the United States. Alexander II, like all of his predecessors, was not a perfect man. In Poland and Lithuania, he banned the use of native languages in writing and even outlawed speaking Polish outside of private conversations, and towards the end of his reign he began to enact reactionary policies. What contributed most to his change in behavior was the multiple attempts to take his life during the last 15 years of his reign. On March 13, 1881, Tsar Alexander II was assassinated by a small group of revolutionaries who were part of the Narodnaya Volya, a left-wing terrorist organization determined to destabilize the Russian Empire and bring about socialist reforms through assassinations and other acts of terrorism planned in secret societies. Tsar Alexander II died that day after his carriage was bombed multiple times in St. Petersburg, but his memory would live on as the most beloved Tsar in Russia's history. So what do you think? Tell us who your favorite Tsars are in the comment section below, and be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and ring the bell so that you'll never miss a video.